Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. This is the Week 10 Reactions Podcast. Jeff Erickson in here, and I'm with Joe Bartel today. There's no Costco Boys music or anything like that. Not with boom. We're not bringing the boom. We're not doing anything with booms. It's just talking Week 10. I mean, we're talking some booms. They happen to be injuries, and that's the thing that we got to jump into right away. We got some news, of course, right after our Sirius XM show today. Starting off in Jacksonville, unfortunately, Travis Hunter out for the season.
I don't think that was entirely surprising when we initially got the news that Travis Hunter had suffered a knee injury during Thursday's practice. Of course, that came off the bye week, and Travis Hunter went nuclear in a game in which they are getting completely annihilated by the Rams, and there's a lot of optimism. I thought it was a little bit of safeguarding what was going to be inevitably very bad news, and of course, Hunter being done for the year is certainly qualifying for that. I thought that Jakobi Meyers trade, which again with Jacksonville already out a first-round pick this year because of that Hunter trade to give up a fourth and sixth rounder for Meyers, also felt like a little bit of the GM telling on himself that Hunter's going to be missing extensive time. Not that you would have thought Hunter would become the slot receiver that I think they want Jakobi Meyers to be, but that was a pretty desperate move. And one I thought only would be brought on in the event that Hunter was missing a significant portion of his time. So it's super unfortunate. It's specifically unfortunate to me as somebody that had been fading Hunter all year, and I wanted to be right about that. And now I don't quite get to be right about that because people will pretend, oh no, it was coming on. Don't worry about that one game where, again, the Jaguars are losing by 3 scores midway through the second quarter. That surely was an indication that Hunter was going to be more involved. It wasn't, but again, we won't know. So I guess kudos to you. Yeah, exactly. Kudos to you for... or kudos to you, those of you out there listening that thought Hunter would be a fantasy asset. You'll never know. You'll never be proven wrong because he's done for the season.
Yeah. So what's that? Brian Thomas misses last week. What's that? Where does this leave us? Because, I look at what happened last week. Parker Washington is too good to just completely forget about, I feel like. Even after the Jakobi Meyers trade, when Thomas comes back, sure. That's going to change things up a little bit, but I think Parker Washington is going to be a continuing part of this offense and will be rosterable. What say you?
Yeah, I think you're possibly even discounting it more from me. I mean, you do the weekly rankings. I'll be very curious where you have Parker Washington, let's just say week 12, because we're talking about getting 19 targets prior to this week, ends up being the lead target getter once again. In a game that got weird, right? Really, especially in that fourth quarter where the Texans come from behind and an egregious loss from Knicks Jags, which really feels like a perfect gift for him as a fan of sports now as a new father. So that he has to deal with the Jags being incompetent, I guess it's nothing new for him. But I think Parker Washington's could be more involved potentially. To me, the bigger deal is Brenton Strange, the tight end who's been on injured reserve now for much of the season. It sounds like Strange is returning or getting close to it. And if that's the case, I don't know how Jacksonville's offense would function in the way that I would want Parker Washington to be, even like a wide receiver 20 or bumping up higher in that range, because to me, it's the slot. And you have Jakobi Meyers on one side. When Strange comes back, you'll be assuming Strange plays more of those intermediate targets as well, too. And then Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington on the outside. Maybe you just keep building upon the good thing, the only good thing, arguably, within that offense, and have Parker Washington continue to play more snaps in the slot. But I need to see that happen before I really commit to it. So unfortunately, it's a question mark, I think, within Jacksonville's offense still today.
Yeah, I think Meyers does some middle patterns, as Uncle Ted suggests here in the chat. I think that happens, takes away some of the strength from BTJ there. But I think Washington is just too good to kind of phase out. We'll see what happens when Brenton Strange comes back. But one guy that, he got kind of eased out of the equation was Diami Brown in that game. Meyers did make a couple big catches that were helpful, but Washington is the guy that's just got some juice. So I want to see what that is going forward. Interesting game for them coming up this week. Jacksonville hosting the Chargers. Chargers have some good vibes coming on. They don't have an offensive line coming on, though. One thing Jacksonville does do well on defense is rush the passer a little bit. So maybe we see this up against this Chargers offensive line with no Joe Alt.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to see that with the Steelers too, right? And the Chargers really kind of annihilated that. And
that game was like 12-3 though until late. right?
Yeah, I never felt like Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt and really the interior pass rushers that don't get enough credit. And of course, I'm not naming them because I'm blanking right now. But like the Steelers' defensive line just annihilated the Colts and helped them in that victory. It didn't feel like it was the same influence in the Chargers. And what I thought was going to be a very quick and pass-heavy approach to Lab McConkey and Oronde Gadsden and Keenan Allen, it was kind of that, but actually Kamani Vidal actually got a little bit more run than I would have thought against that Steelers defense. And I do think you can do that against Jacksonville. You talk about the good vibes as well, too. Oronde Gadsden had left that game against the Steelers with a knee injury. I thought he got carted off, but it might have just walked up. Either way, everything I was reading, and I have a lot of Gadsden shares. He was one of the guys I was recommending heavily in the WaiverWire show a couple weeks ago. Was that Gadsden was going to miss time. Well, he has an MRI on Monday, now listed as day-to-day. He could even play this week against Jacksonville, which would be fantastic. So that is the good news. I think Gadsden's going to be a really big piece if he's healthy, and it does matter that he's healthy against Jacksonville this week, where I think the Chargers probably win, but it does feel like both these teams could win or lose games with the best of them. They're right up there in the NFL with both results being in play.
Yeah, exactly. And if Gadsden does happen to miss this game, go pick up Pat Freiermuth, please. Please pick Freiermuth up because he happens to be available again in many leagues. And they faced the Bengals this week. And it wasn't just the Thursday night game that Freiermuth tore them up. That was probably the most extreme example, but he's always played well against the Bengals. The Bengals always get burned by tight ends. The Bengals linebacking core and safeties are horrendous. So if you get it, if you need to pick up a tight end, that's the way to go with that.
Yeah, I was going to say emphasis on the first part of that. Yeah, I mean, I think Colston Loveland's still scoring touchdowns even through the Bengals bye week at this point.
Yes,
yeah,
it's amazing. It's a very long reception, like 6,500 miles.
It's an incredible fantasy day for those who are drafting Colston Loveland high. Yeah, no, I don't mind that call. I mean, Freiermuth probably you are possibly the only person that I'll ever say this to. You play in deeper league formats than I do, Jeff. Whereas I think in my 17 leagues, Freiermuth is probably widely available in most of them. That he might be available in a few of your leagues is funny to me. But no, I wholeheartedly agree. I think Freiermuth is an option. Again, to say, going back to like, if Gadsden is available, we're both recommending Gadsden easily as what's like a tight end one low and fringe range. But we have to make sure we get confirmation from the Chargers that Gadsden is going to be able to play against Jacksonville this week.
Indeed. So just wanted to throw that out there, talking about that game. Other major injury news today. We saw that unfortunately J.K. Dobbins, there was some hinting of this last week after the game, after the win over the Raiders, that his foot injury was serious because they said he was seeking a second opinion. Today we get I think it was Chris Thomason is the writer that I
believe you are correct. Yes.
That was talking about this, that talked about he may need to go on IR. They're checking out their options there, and I'm looking up this source. Yeah, Chris Thomason is the source on this one here. He covers it for the Denver Gazette, not the Denver Post, but the Denver Gazette. TOMASSON is where I saw this first, that they're looking at that. So they also are out. They have other bad news. They also don't have Alex Singleton in this game. They may not have, again, the big one there. Yeah, Surtain. We'll see. He's already missed a few, but this is a huge game coming up for the Broncos against the Chiefs. Dobbins has been very good for fantasy, very good for the Broncos, especially. It is RJ Harvey time. However, don't be surprised if sometimes they turn to Tyler Batty is bad as an option here as well, as a potential option there. I would pick. We're struggling to find pickups this week at running back.
Yep, he's going to be
on my list now.
He's going to make my WaiverWire article, which I'll be doing shortly after we're done here. If you're on the RotoWire site, I update that up daily leading up to Thursday's kickoff. So Beatty, I forget which one it is. He will be on that list. I was going to ask you this when we had the news break just a little bit earlier, that if Dobbins goes on injured reserve, we're talking about missing week 11 against the Chiefs, Broncos on bye week 12, then Commanders and Raiders, and then you'd have the Packers, because I think you have to miss 4 actual games, not 4 weeks. So Packers week 15. The next time you're getting Dobbins, if he does go on injured reserve, is week 16, likely for a lot of folks, the semifinals of the fantasy playoffs. A, Jeff, is Dobbins a drop to you? And B, again, knowing the schedule, Chiefs, Commanders, Raiders, Packers. Is RJ Harvey a guy that maybe you would try to acquire via trade right now with the assumption that he rises above running back 2, where Dobbins, I think, has been conventionally for most of the season?
I think there's too good, too bad in there, right? Chiefs and Packers aren't good. Raiders and especially Commanders are very good.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the bye week factoring in the where if you're giving them assets for Harvey, you're probably not able to go ahead and use Harvey on a bye then in a trade like this.
So you'd prefer not to trade someone that's already had their bye, all things being equal. But you're trading positions. You're not going to trade running back for running back. Let's be clear. This is the way unless you're in a dynasty league of some sort, or a keeper league even. For the most part, you're not doing player for player same position, unless it's a 2-for-2 trade.
Yeah, right, exactly. And somebody in the chat saying trade Dobbins. Well, yeah, again,
no one's going to trade for Dobbins.
Dobbins isn't playing.
That's not an option.
Yeah, Dobbins isn't playing until the fantasy semifinals for a lot of folks if he returns at all. That's where I go back to is RJ Harvey. One of those. I really liked Harvey entering the year. I kind of just was able to ride the fence and say I liked Judkins, I liked TreVeyon Henderson, I liked Ashton Genty, I liked RJ Harvey, I liked all of them at their early to mid-August price tag. There got to be a point where TreVeyon Henderson was a late third-round pick. That was egregious in my mind. And Amari Hampton even got a little bit too high for me too. And I liked all these prospects. If it is just RJ Harvey's backfield, and I think that's the key for me because I don't think Beatty is going to be. I could be wrong. I mean, Sean Payton does really frustrating things all the time. It could be Julie McLaughlin. There could be a practice squad call up that gets the Terrell Jennings treatment for the Patriots as well too.
Thing. Yep.
Right. Like. But if it is RJ Harvey, let's just say even getting 20 touches a game, that is I think he's a talented enough guy in an offense that will use him the correct way, the way I'd want RJ Harvey to be used. That 20 touches to me elevates above running back 2 status, where I'd be happy to go ahead and speculate on it. The only issue is the people who have sat on RJ Harvey to this point probably were also assuming that to happen. And now they finally got their windfall here in mid-November. They might want to just take their victory lap. And I don't blame them if that's the case.
Oh, sure. I mean, same with the TreVeyon Henderson folks, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yep.
Who are you more optimistic about going forward, Henderson or Harvey?
I am entering the assumption that Dobbins is placed on injured reserve, not just because of the report that we heard earlier today, but also anytime you hear a second opinion, I feel like that's one of the more dreaded lexicon phrases here in fantasy football. If a player needs a second opinion on injury, it's almost always bad. So I'm assuming Dobbins is on injured reserve. My answer is RJ Harvey, and I like Henderson a lot. He was probably my favorite rookie running back entering this year. I liked Judkins a lot too, but that legal situation made things a little bit difficult from a redraft perspective. Henderson's great. I don't know how the Patriots put that genie back in the bottle, other than just Josh McDaniels will use Ramondre Stevenson in a certain way when he returns. And the information we have on Ramondre Stevenson is he should be back sooner rather than later. Might not play this week with them on a short week against the Jets, but I think we'll be back in another week, if not a little bit later than that. And if it's RJ Harvey against, I would just call them C- players, or Ramondre Stevenson and TreVeyon Henderson splitting workload, give me RJ Harvey in that scenario.
Be careful not to mention the Jets and an injured player, because a certain coach might get upset with you.
Yes, I saw that.
Speaking of which, Garrett Wilson out 3 to 4 weeks, according to Rich Cimini of ESPN New York.
Not Aaron Glenn, notably.
Not Aaron Glenn. Go ask Rich about that one. He seems to know. Come on, dude. Man, I kind of worry about Aaron Glenn.
I think that was that was my first alarm bells. Like, oh, there's just better ways to handle that as a coach. Like you've been around, you were in the NFL. Like, what are you talking about that you don't know how this stuff goes from a reporting perspective? That was Bush League stuff, I think, from Aaron Glenn.
It totally was, and you got to realize the reporter doesn't work for you. He is not a member of your team. Don't expect him to treat you as such. It takes away. I saw like people tweeting at Cimini like, oh, you're taking away their competitive advantage in a certain week. A, you're not.
Right.
B, that's not his job. His job is to report the news. And C, I want to know these things. I need to know these things. This is our job. And as fantasy managers, and especially as purveyors of fantasy information and strategy and advice, we fully appreciate reporters doing their job. They're reporters. That's what they do, folks. But you know what? I think most people get that. I just think we get a poor sampling on Twitter of people in their intellectual capabilities, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a true reflection of society. And
you and I are probably, I think this is fair given our backgrounds as our jobs before. I think you and I are probably more favorable to journalists than a lot of other people are in the country. Sure. Not to say that people don't like journalists, but I don't think they understand to the level that we do, or appreciate to the level we do, what they add value to the sport, to I think the world and everything else like that too. Not to get political with this stuff, but yeah, I mean, I would like more NFL teams and coaches to get shamed for not reporting things. And this isn't just from a betting perspective, but I think the Lamar Jackson case was a perfect example, right? Where they get a little bit of a slap in the wrist fines, and there was certain people being like, I don't understand what the big deal about that. What do you mean that's not a big deal that Lamar Jackson wasn't discussed about being like that? That was a 4-point swing from a betting perspective. There's a lot of money nowadays. Whether that is right or wrong is not the conversation. It is happening, and you are deliberately affecting that stuff. I mean, the Buccaneers, I remember Bruce Arians is always going to be the first one for this, where he was lying about Mike Evans' status entering week 1, had told us all NFL offseason Mike Evans wasn't going to play, then comes back and plays, scores a touchdown on his lone reception. Rest of the year, he's fine. But even the even the Buccaneers and Niners this year are doing that same stuff now with Bucky Irving, and we have Mac Jones and Brandon Ayuk. I want more teams to be shamed for what feels very deliberately and callously not revealing information to the public about some of these players that will make an impact betting or otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why they have injury reports in the first place. You know, you weren't old enough for this one, but Ricky Waters once was listed as probable and then didn't play in a West Coast game for the Eagles one time, and everybody just blew up. This is pre-Twitter era, but we all blew up. I got all these emails like, this is what they told us, and you know, they gotten rid of the probable designation first of all.
Well, your Bengals did that with Higgins, one of those games, right? Where he was just a decoy, plays 15 snaps, and then he's available.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and there are some teams I trust less than others. You know, it's so funny. I heard, I forget if it was Rappaport or Schefter talking about the Rams and Sean McVay saying he's really transparent. I'm like, which McVay are you talking about? And then and Shanahan too is even, and Shanahan's even worse.
Right.
Just the worst.
Yes. And I think John Lynch plays a part in that too. But I want to be clear, when we're talking about reporters, I do not think Rappaport and Schefter deserve the same sort of grace that I'm referring to with Rich Cimini or anybody else like that. Like, those guys are not in the same level of reporting, I think. But that's a separate cover. Yeah, again, Garrett Wilson now, we're assuming going to be out for at least a month. I would assume the Jets put him on injury reserve. Probably doesn't play rest of season if you're where the Jets are. We expect them to be in a month. And the unfortunate part, and I wrote about this in the waiver wire article up on the site Monday, will be again updated later today. The Jets have such dysfunctional offense that there isn't a single player that benefits in the scenario where Garrett Wilson doesn't play. Like, do you want to go pick up A.D. Mitchell? I like A.D. Mitchell's a talent, but he's going to be on second week of a new team, already didn't perform well in his last team. Josh Reynolds got a bunch of workload when it was a kind of uneven quarterback situation with Tyrod Taylor and Fields. Do you want to have Josh Reynolds in a make or break fantasy week for you? Absolutely not. No, like, so I just, it's bleak, unfortunately. And I only think once Tyrod Taylor becomes quarterback, and I think he will at some point, that's when you maybe have a Mason Taylor, or if you want to speculate on some other pass catcher. But right now, if it's Fields as your quarterback, I don't think it matters that Garrett Wilson's unable to play.
Yeah, A.D. Mitchell wasn't even active in the first game with them. We don't even know which quarterback's going to be playing because, of course, competitive advantage and all that. Yeah, okay, Aaron. Good stuff. I mean, I know there is some advantage, but please, it's Bush League stuff. All right, we're going to be talking about more dysfunctional offenses, about the Monday night game, or at least one dysfunctional offense. But first, we got a quick note from our friends over at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000x your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. Thank you to Dabble for joining us for this stretch of the football season. We do appreciate their sponsorship. Joe, time to talk Packers. We did it earlier once today. Yes. I'm forcing you to do it again. Not make the playoff odds are now at plus 300 for the Packers. That's the lowest it's been. Still favored to make it, obviously. You know, they're favored over the Niners, they're favored over the Bears. But we have to have the discussion at the least.
Yeah, 5 division games remaining for the Packers outside of this game against the Giants this week, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later as well. I think you're going to make an argument, or anyone can make an argument, that the Packers could lose 3 of those 5 division games. So you say they split against the Vikings, lose against the Lions, maybe you split against the Bears as well too. You're out of the playoffs in that scenario. Mm-hmm. And especially when the Bears are contending in that same sort of 6-7 spot as well too. Now, conversely, a win on Thanksgiving. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Conversely, if they win on Thanksgiving over the Lions, now you're talking about a position where they actually have the upper hand, and that's part of the tie over the Cowboys in the NFC North. And we made this conversation on SiriusXM. We'll rehash it during the podcast as well, too. You can't have 3 teams in the NFC North and 3 teams in the NFC West all make the playoffs. It just is not possible with things. So it really becomes a matter of, do you think the Seahawks or Niners, in my mind, are making the playoffs over the Bears and Packers? And I think the Seahawks are definitively a playoff team. I think they might be one of the better teams in the NFC. And if or when the Niners ever get healthy, I trust Kyle Shanahan more in scenarios that matter, do or die moments, than what we have seen from Matt LaFleur, especially over the past half decade now. So I think it's entirely reasonable that Packers missed the playoffs. They could end up missing at 10-7, and people talk about, well, it's a winning record. It's better than like Mike Tomlin stuff for the Steelers. And I'll say, don't lose to the Browns. Don't lose to the Chiefs. I'm sorry, don't lose to the Panthers, and you wouldn't be in this spot anyway. Like there is very little room for any more mishaps. And you've watched what's happened the past month, which is supposed to be the easy part of the Packers schedule. And I don't know how this gets rectified or fixed overnight, not with all the injuries they have, and not with the way that Matt LaFleur continues to, I think, call passive plays for Jordan Love. Yeah.
And passive plays and plays to lesser players, lesser teammates there too. Something we've just been pounding over and over. I mean, okay, Savion Williams was a 3rd round pick. He's not a total utter like guy off the street or anything, but he shouldn't be getting critical plays there. You know, you shouldn't be throwing to converted corners on 4th down. Yeah, even if the throw is perfect and he was open, I get it. And part of the problem is something we didn't even say during the broadcast today on SiriusXM, but let's face it, the Eagles DBs are really good. And so you want to attack their lesser DBs. You want to be able to find the softer spots there. There's a reason why Dobbs didn't get that many targets, because he wasn't open that often, because he was well covered. He was a priority to shut down. But still, need more Dobbs, need more Dobbs. I always
it's Dobbs and more Watson too. Now
Watson, for
there's
sure.
a lot of all 22 coverage right now, at least on my Twitter, which I've thankfully cultivated to be mainly Packer stuff, although it's not thankful in these sorts of moments. It was not a good all 22 film for Jordan Love, who I have defended, I think, for the past year and a half or so. I think there's really only an early portion of Love's starting tenure at the Packers that I was a little bit worried about what he would be as the quarterback and franchise for the Packers. Not a very good one. It was very clear the pass rush was affecting Jordan Love. He seemed to get off of reads multiple times. I thought Troy Aikman and Joe Buck did a great job bringing up in the broadcast as well, too. There was an open corner route to Christian Watson. I think in the second quarter, Dobbs had multiple mid plays within 15 to 20 yards as well, too, in the middle of the field, which were just open, and throws that Love normally makes, but he was clearly helter-skelter from that Eagles pass rush. And this all goes back to the offensive line woes. And you had mentioned Zach Tom on the broadcast, on the SiriusXM broadcast, not performing well. You have Elgin Jenkins now, a Pro Bowl guard, but turned center for reasons that really still are unclear to me from Brian Gutekunst's perspective, general manager for the Packers. Elgin Jenkins is going to be out now for a month. And while the Packers, relative to other teams, when you say, here's your starting center, and then inconsistent play or injury play from your left guard, have still multiple starters like Sean Ryan that can fill right in, it's not a good spot to be in. I mean, this is a team that had a 1st-round pick in Jordan Mason 2 years ago. He's underperformed Anthony Belton, who was taken in the 2nd round. No idea why, when there was a guy named Trey Amos, a good enough corner, I think would have made a difference to the secondary available at that point too, that had fallen there. Belton hasn't played much at all, and he's been injury prone as well. The investments invested in the front end of drafts towards the offensive line were supposed to negate this exact thing happening. And over the past month, the Packers time and time again have lost the line of scrimmage, despite massive commitments to improving that position during the offseason.
Yeah, well, I mean, player they drafted in the 1st round last year only makes the rotation due to injury. It's when he's not even a starter for you right now, that's a problem. And that's something that, hey, sometimes you whiff in drafts, but whiffing on a 1st rounder is tough.
I mean, like, at least Billy Price was playing, right? Like, I can't tell, and I'm not even trying to like make fun of you as a Bengals fan. I'm just saying, like, at least your guy that you took in the 1st round offensive line was playing, and you could decide, is he good or not? Like, I think the Jordan Mason selection, again, the 1st round pick from 2 years ago, he was drafted to be a tackle. I think the assumption is he would take over for Rasheed Walker, who is a left tackle, 4th round pick from a couple years ago, that will be a free agent and probably commands a dollar amount that's more than the Packers want to pay. So Jordan Morgan slides over to the left tackle in 2 years. But at that point, you would still like him to be a contributing factor and not a problem. I mean, I think I think
Right.
he was the one that had the false start on the quarterback sneak early in the first half that would have extended the drive for the Packers.
Yeah.
And then you have Sean Ryan, and the same thing, who's been a 3rd-round pick, not been as effective either. It's been a mess. And again, with no Elgin and Jenkins, the Packers have depth relative to other teams to sort of make passability with that. But if one more injury were to occur, we're talking about a almost Chargers-like situation with the offensive line.
Yep, indeed we are. Let's move on. I thought this was a week where a lot of the true contenders asserted themselves. Well, in the afternoon window, that was definitely the case. Rams, the Seahawks, the Lions all took care of business. They took care of business emphatically and early. Now we get Rams Seahawks coming up this week. I cannot wait for that game. But I'm going to issue the mea culpa again. I was wrong about the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Part of my skepticism was predicated on Sam Darnold not being able to handle the pass rush that he would inevitably face with that Seahawks offensive line. He's not facing that sort of pressure. He's the second lowest sack rate in the NFL. Only Bo Nix is pressured less often. That matters. Sam Darnold under pressure. We saw that in the playoffs. We saw it in week 18 against the Lions last year. It's not a pretty picture. Sam Darnold, when he has time, he's got a good arm. He's got a great receiver in JSN. By the way, I also thought they didn't have enough receiving help, and that has also proven to be, well, it's not super inaccurate, but it's kind of inaccurate. Cooper Kupp is kind of limited at what he can do, but Torrey Horton stepped up. The tight ends have stepped at times, but JSN has just taken another level too. And that's the real answer to all that. But
right. Yeah. I think the elevation of Jackson Smith and Jigba has helped, overcome what was, I thought, predictable, and I think frankly a lot of people thought predictable in terms of Cooper Kupp's injury history. I liked Torrey Horton enough. I was very intrigued, especially in the preseason when we heard that he was getting boundary snaps, and I thought that was an important thing, especially when at a certain point Marquez Valdes-Scantling was competing for that role. I know he's not on the Seahawks any longer, but it's like, okay, it's good that Torrey Horton can beat out a veteran like MVS, but at the same time, when we're debating between those two having a critical spot within the starting receiving core, that was already an alarm bell raiser. And maybe that's been fixed even as the season has progressed now with the Rashid Shaheed addition as well, too. Whereas we talked about this in the SiriusXM broadcast with Jacoby Myers, that it was maybe an aggressive decision for Jacksonville to go ahead and trade for Myers. And is that a byproduct of knowing Hunter was going to miss time? I think the Seahawks acquiring Rashid Shaheed was actually, we're a really good team. We now have depth at this spot that matters for the way we run offensive schematically. And because of that, we'll use Rashid Shaheed sparingly. He's going to be a punt return. He's going to be a special teams asset as well, too. And fantasy-wise, it certainly hurts because Rashid Shaheed was quietly like in full-point PPR leagues, 12 points guaranteed with the Saints. He won't do that for the Seahawks any longer, but he makes the Seahawks offense better. I was completely wrong about the Seahawks, too. I mean, I thought Seattle was going to be one of the worst offenses in the league. Couldn't have been more wrong about that. And I think it goes a lot of credit to JSN, but also Sam Darnold. I will be very curious to see what happens this week against the Rams in Los Angeles. Now, I think they play again later in the year. It's very easy for the Rams and Seahawks to split this one, and we will overreact to what happens here in Week 11 one way or another. And the way the NFC West seems to always play out, we could just erase that decision come the next time they face each other because it's often a split, like the Niners and Rams this past week as well, too. I believe the Rams are, if they are not the best team in the NFC, they are right there. And I think they are a level above the Seahawks because I believe, and I have seen Matthew Stafford in games that matter, in postseason contests that haven't had everything perfectly work out their way, still be able to survive, and they're going to have a pass rush that can do things in the postseason. So I take the Rams to win. I think the Rams are probably my Super Bowl favorite right now from the NFC.
Yeah, and I peeled away a little bit late in draft season from some key Rams, including Puka, unfortunately, in part because Matthew Stafford wasn't practicing. He was in the quack medicine trailer.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that, it wasn't even like a hyperbaric chamber. It was like some mindfulness chamber, so he could relax or whatever it was. Devontae Adams has been great. He's getting all those red zone targets, and they're working now. They weren't necessarily earlier in the season, but Stafford's had 3 straight games of 4+ TDs. He is on fire right now. I don't have enough Stafford on my teams. I have some, but not enough. Because I wait on the quarterbacks a lot, and you could wait some more when it came to Stafford. He was the ultimate wait on QB this year. He's a right answer. Puka is a right answer. How many times did I take BTJ over Puka? And stridently talk about it too, Joe. I mean, it just it was all about two things. It was about Stafford, and it was also about Puka getting hurt. Now Puka's been banged up multiple times. He's missed a game,
right?
And yet he's blown that away. I mean, BTJ missed a game now, and he's really arguably missed all season. So it's been frustrating.
This is great. I love the strategy conversation. This is probably one of my favorite things to do during the NFL off season, certainly during training camp. I also like understanding the strategy part of things after the fact. Like we can be upset about BTJ over Puka Nacua. I think the information we had at the time with Matthew Stafford's back injury history, because he does have a history, should be concerning. Puka Nacua does get injured, and he did get injured this year. And the way that they use him is always susceptible to it relative to other people. We couldn't have assumed Brian Thomas Jr. would have the yips. I mean, I don't know how else to describe the way he's been playing, but I do think it's interesting. We're always looking at these rushing quarterbacks, right? Here's Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. They're all high, but don't worry. Take Kyler Murray or take Caleb Williams or take Justin Fields, right? That was one of the guys I was pounding the table for at quarterback 10 or 11 or 12. And the reality is, if your quarterback can give you 2 touchdowns and 250 yards, how useful would that be the entire season? Like if you knew this quarterback plays the entire year, just gives you a steady Eddie 250 and 2, that's probably quarterback 5 with everything else that's been happening to the quarterback landscape this year. And Matthew Stafford, who is almost incapable of picking up rushing yards, is going to be one of the guys I think at the end of the day that you wish you had. Baker Mayfield, ironically, I thought was that kind of quarterback last year too. And now this year has added that rushing element to his game out of necessity. And maybe the reactionary thing that we have to have for next year is look at whatever veteran quarterback we feel is in a good enough offense and say, even if they have lesser rushing production, is that made up with the projectable touchdowns? And either you draft Matthew Stafford or you bet the over on whatever that player's touchdown number is for that season. And you profit that way.
Yeah. And hey, pay attention to your league rules. The NFFC went 6 points for a passing touchdown. You absolutely go that way. Some leagues, it's as little as 3. And when it's as little as 3, then okay, maybe you don't go that way. Stafford, one thing won't change. He will not be getting you those rushing yards. Right. Go back to the Philly game where he couldn't outrun. Was it Jordan Adams that he couldn't outrun one time on a scramble? It was just, it was really funny. But yeah, there is that. Then finally to Detroit, Dan Campbell calling plays, Joe. Just something he tried to downplay a little bit. At least he wasn't like the showboat about it or anything like that. But it's usually you see an announcement when a team like a head coach takes away the play calling duties from an offensive coordinator. It's not the only head coach that's ever done that. So it's not that unusual, but he kind of downplayed a little bit and it worked like a charm. I want to see what happens when he faces a real defense. We'll see that this week because the Commanders were right there with the Bengals leading the league in missed tackles on the season.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure, Jeff, you and I collectively could have put together an offensive performance that gets 100 rushing yards for the Lions in that game. Now, again, I think Gibbs goes for 150 himself. Montgomery does a little bit more too. Like we're talking about close to 250 rushing yards. Commanders defense was not very good. Not that I thought they gave up, although Daron Payne definitely did when he deliberately punched Amon-Ra St. Brown to get himself ejected from that game. I don't think the Commanders defense gave up, but they just are. They look like the oldest team in the NFL, which shockingly, Jeff, we all thought was going to happen after what was a positive bounce of the regression last year and getting the NFC Championship. Like that was Jaden Daniels playing well. I think that was Cliff Kingsbury pantsing a few people. NFL defenses that really weren't expecting that. And that was everyone playing above the medium level. And now you have basically an entire roster of old parts and lesser draft picks because you lost some to Deebo Samuel, Marshawn Lattimore, Laramie Tunsil. And I think there's going to be real question marks as to how the Commanders rebuild things this offseason without very little financial wiggle room as well, too. So you get the rookie quarterback, you go ahead and commit to him the way they have. And when things don't work out and work out this spectacularly, I think there's going to be major question marks. So yeah, the Washington's defense is horrendous. I think Dan Campbell calling plays is fine. It was really encouraging to see what happens when Jamison Williams finally gets more involved. But I'll give myself credit on this, little pat on the back. I did call this both on the Friday and Sirius XM show that I thought you sign Jamison Williams to the contract you do to make sure you keep the infrastructure in place and you have a get out of jail free card if things don't quite work out offensively. Like if it was Jameson Williams leaves or it's 1 year and he gets frustrated, whatever it is, it's different than here's the $30 million receiver that we only use sparingly. You break that out in these sorts of games where you know you can basically win anyhow, and let Jameson Williams be a threat on tape for future weeks, even if you won't be presenting that in the same way. So I was recommending playing Jameson Williams everywhere. I don't think I'll do the same thing against this Eagles defense. And I do think you're going to see the Lions struggle a little bit more, whether it's Dan Campbell, Charlie Morton, or you and me calling plays, because that's how much better the Eagles defense is rather than the Commanders.
Agreed on all points there, including you recommending Jameson Williams. I did hear that actually a little bit there. So kudos to you for that. We got to take care of a little bit more business. Quick note from our friends at Draft Battle. Weekly draft fantasy football is here. Welcome to Draft Battle, the only fantasy football platform where the draft is king. What's the best part about playing fantasy football? The draft, of course. So why do we only draft at the beginning of the season? At Draft Battle, you can enter snake draft contests every week, all season long. And the best part is you can get $100 bonus cash right now at sign up with promo code RotoWire. You heard that right. Maybe it was a little tricky to hear because I butchered it, but you heard that right. $100 bonus cash with promo code RotoWire. Draft Battle contests last 1 week only and have no season-long commitment. No salary caps, better odds, 8 teams per contest with a best ball format, which means no roster management. Plus, Superflex scoring and weekly payouts. Injuries derail your season-long league. If injuries derail your season-long league, stay in the game all season long with Draft Battle. High stakes, weekly draft fantasy football. Bonus cash is non-withdrawable. Must be 18 plus and present in select states. 19 plus in Nebraska. Visit draftbattle.com for details. Big thanks to Draft Battle for joining us. Joe, let's talk about a team that I thought, they won the offseason, but they might be a little overrated in season. They might be winning the regular season. The New England Patriots go down to Tampa and assert their authority over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat. I forget. We'll call it the sabermetrics data. I know it's not used the same way in baseball as NFL, but we'll talk about EPA as like a stat. At least the smart people do as a stat that matters. I think the Patriots are negative EPA or something like that, and that's a byproduct of their big wins, basically being against against the Bills, becoming a little bit lesser. But the last time that we've gotten to week 10 and a team that has an 8-2 record or a 7-3 record has a negative EPA or whatever the stat is, I'm blanking right now, was that Steelers fraudulent team that I think went 10-0 from maybe half a decade ago.
Yes.
Like, you remember that team?
Ben's last good year. Yes.
And every single one of us that had two eyes at all be like, this Steelers team is very good. And we were trying to be gaslit by Steelers fans, be like, no, they're good. And they lost in the first round of the playoffs and basically haven't been that level of team since. I think the Patriots are significantly better than that Steelers team. I very vividly remember having arguments or conversations on social media kind of trying to refute the Steelers in that capacity. However, the Patriots basically have not and won't play a relevant team until the postseason. They'll have one more game against the Bills.
They just did. Tampa is a relevant team.
You're right. You're right. I should say they won't play it again. And I don't know, like watching that
Until
Buccaneers
Buffalo.
game.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that was this juggernaut number one AFC team? Because there was a spark Drake May throw or two, but I thought you very well could tell he's a second-year quarterback. And other than some very explosive plays from TreVeyon Henderson, who, let's be honest, probably wouldn't be in that spot if Ramondre Stevenson had been healthy entering that game. That's a different game. That's a different game. And the Buccaneers, they have caught everyone by surprise despite all the injuries. They are a good team, like you said. But if the Patriots are as good as the record would indicate, the offensive production, the conversation Drake made in the MVP, I was expecting the Patriots to not be in a spot where they had to pray a 4-minute drive win result in a touchdown or field goal or whatever it was. Like I thought the Patriots would be better than what they showed on Sunday.
See, I disagree. I feel like I was suitably impressed with what they did. A, they were underdogs going into this game. You got to remember that. 2, or B, we'll try to stay consistent with our labeling. I thought the defense really did a number on Baker Mayfield, especially in the second half. They, the 4th and 3 play, they got to him. That's the play that all season long Baker would wriggle out of it and he convert. Look at what he did against Seattle earlier in the season.
The 49ers too.
Yeah, he was making plays all over the field. And the Pats just didn't let him do that. I thought the pass to Kyle Williams was perfect. It led Kyle Williams perfectly, didn't have to break stride, took advantage of that speed. Williams did the rest. He got open, but May threw him open too. That was a perfect throw on that. The touchdown right before halftime where
yes,
Vrabel
let's talk about that.
got galaxy brained. We didn't talk about, Nick and I didn't really talk about that the other day. I thought that was dumb.
Oh,
do that.
You really? Okay. All right. Keep going.
You're never guaranteed the touchdown. And they really, they got to a 4th and goal do or die play.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they overthought it, to be honest with you. But it was cool. It was fun to see the QB sneak. That wasn't a sneak at all. It was a kneel down. But the throw to Diggs was perfect. Diggs had to make a hell of a play to catch it, but it was put in the only spot where Diggs could catch it. And, and only Diggs could catch it. I thought it was a great throw by May. So May's made throws like that all year too. It's not just this game. All season long, I've been impressed with that. They come out of the second half and score on the opening drive after that. So they got the ultimate 2-for-1 as far as that goes. They got the last touchdown before the half.
Yeah.
They got on the very last play of the half, and then they got scored on the immediate drive after halftime. I still didn't like that sequence. I thought because the thing is, if you don't get a touchdown there, you get nothing there. What's the point of it all? And
so that's where I go back to this. Like that it required all of that effort for the Patriots to get a not last second win, but a game that was a nail biter down to the fourth quarter. Like one, if that pass gets a little bit windy, right, to Stephon Diggs, or if the Kyle Williams one is an inch off, like we can give credit to Drake May about how perfect of a throw is. No person, no quarterback, no matter how great they are, is going to have a perfect throw every time. Like if it doesn't quite go that way, the Buccaneers win that game. And yeah, they were favored. It was 2.5, 3.5 by the end of by the kickoff. Like there was a lot of, I think, momentum for the Patriots to win that game outright, or at least to prove that they were in that sort of level. So that you had to do all that stuff. I loved the Vrabel call. I actually thought that was super smart because and we hear this all the time from former football players. It's the geeks like you and me who sit here and look at the numbers and say momentum doesn't matter. But if you go ahead and score that touchdown and allow the Buccaneers to then go ahead, maybe even get 3 points, that momentum, I think, has been a catalyst so often for emergences of Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers in the second half. So that you had a guy like Vrabel who has been on the field, has seen these situations, that felt very comfortable saying, even if we don't score points, I didn't let Baker get hot. That was fascinating to me. And I thought one of the bigger differences why that 2-for-1 was as impactful and really was the lead winner for the game as it was in that first and second half.
Yeah. Joe Bartel arguing for momentum in sports. Never thought I'd see the day. Joe Sheehan would be, tearing it, just tearing things up, throwing things at the screen right now if he heard this. But I think that I look, I get the idea there. I just don't think you can ever assume the score. And if you don't, it's hard enough to score a touchdown in this league. They got stuffed at the goal line on second and third down. It wasn't like that's a given. They took it to the ultimate brink. And I think it was unnecessarily so. A field goal back the other way doesn't take away the fact that you scored a touchdown and they scored a field goal. Math is still in their favor, even if that happens. There are very few situations in life where I'm on team scored too soon. A score is a score is a score. And when you score a touchdown, it's the best thing. The only time that matters is if you can legitimately run out the clock and you do like the T Higgins kneel down thing. Like you did. Yeah. That I'm okay with. But otherwise, and especially when you have a tragic defense like the Bengals, you absolutely don't give the other team time to score. But in that particular instance, I thought it was galaxy brained. It worked out. It did work out for them. And they did get the touchdown right away. Henderson was shot at a cannon on both of those touchdown runs. He almost got another one in the first half too. His very first run, he got like 17 yards and he was a shoestring away from taking it to the house again. So you can, this is another one of those scenarios there where like you can't unsee that. You see that happens. And it's like, we need more of this in our offense.
He looks like Jahmyr Gibbs to me. And I know that that's a lazy comparison because here's similar builds and similar speeds. But Mike, he just looks like Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe not quite as crafty. I think Gibbs, and now 3 years in the NFL, it's different than rookie or Henderson, but I think Gibbs doesn't get enough credit for how he's able to one cut and then explode through it, whereas Henderson has to have that. I mean, both those touchdowns were pretty wide chasms in terms of running lanes. That he's exploding through them is fantastic. What we love to see. But I think Gibbs is a little bit different in that regard, where he can get through nimble areas and still have that explosiveness. I love Henderson. I love Henderson. I loved him entering the year. I don't understand how I could have gotten it so wrong that he's not actually a good pass blocker. That was the whole selling point why I thought Henderson would play.
You didn't get it wrong. The scouting reports, every single prospect podcast told me he was the only running back that could pass pro.
But I was saying that, and I'm watching reps of this that I had to go find YouTube clips of TreVeyon and Henderson pass blocking to confirm what I had heard and seen. Like, I don't know. And maybe it's the Patriots asking him to do something different than what Ohio State was, whatever it is. I really, really hope that we just get our most explosive players on the field to do things that we want them to and worry less about the other things. And the Chiefs would do that. I think the Bills at various times in this past half decade would do that. I would like the Patriots to start doing that too with their explosive player in Henderson.
Yeah. And I think you see this with rookie running backs all the time in the second half of the season. They start doing that. So it's not over. And if they're the ones that are crushing it for us in the fantasy playoffs, all the better. Just it's our job to get to the fantasy playoffs and let them do their thing there. We're going to talk about why this matters so much, because the Bills imploded in Miami. But first, quick note from our friends over at Chalkboard. Cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players receive a free pick and 100% deposit match. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports. Now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL. That's ROTONFL to claim your free pick and 100% deposit match now. Also, we're on the BlueWire network, and here are their ads. All right, Jeff Erickson here with Joe Bartel. We're going to finish up our wrap-up of Week 10. The Buffalo Bills go down to Miami and have a miserable time, which they have done a lot of times in their history. But I didn't expect it this year, but maybe I should have, given that earlier in the season in the Thursday night game in Buffalo, the Bills played with their food and were a roughing the punter penalty away from,
that's right,
being at risk of falling behind in the fourth quarter at home. So maybe we shouldn't have been surprised at this outcome, Joe.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I still am. I think the AFC and NFC versions are very parallel in the Packers and Bills, both teams that had a lot of expectations entering the year and have largely not lived up to them. And because of what has happened in the regular season, probably can't achieve their postseason goals, even if they do turn things around, because they put themselves at the back nine from a scheduling perspective and standings part of things. That Devon Achane went nuclear against the Bills, and a lot of that came in the second half, but I thought Achane, the same way that Henderson had the explosive capability rushing, was crazy to see as well too. And multiple big passes to Jalen Waddle, which was great to see. I feel like we haven't had that version of Tua in 2 years now at this point. I don't know if Mike McDaniel finally just got the albatross off his shoulder that was GM Chris Greer, why that would be an impactful thing where he can now start calling downfield passes. I do not understand, but credit to the Dolphins. I thought just came and completely punched the Bills. There was not a moment in that game where I thought, oh yeah, the Bills have this in hand. They're coming back. Like any sort of positive momentum they might have had after the Dolphins shoved that back down, and the better team absolutely won. And the team that I thought was just consequentially better offensively and defensively was not the Bills, who were my preseason favorite to win the Super Bowl entering the year. And that's very troubling to me now with the Bills' rest of season schedule and where they are in the AFC.
Yeah, the fact that now they're a game behind the Pats, that even if they beat them in the rematch, they still haven't outright won the division. That's the thing that makes it so tricky as far as that goes. And they had, and I think every team is granted a letdown game or two, maybe even 3 or 4. I mean, the same Bills team got blown out in Baltimore last year, just destroyed. They looked horrible in Houston last year. Do you remember that Houston game last year? The weird game there. There was like playing through concussion games and things like that. Some weird things that happened in that game. The Stephon Diggs revenge game. There's a lot of that, even though it wasn't really Diggs. It was the Houston defense that made Josh Allen stay miserable, but they seem to overcome that. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
last year the Baltimore Ravens lose at home to the Raiders in week 2. Things happen in the NFL.
Yeah, I think now that it's funny you say that. And I'm looking at, I think they have 2 losses for sure in their schedule. I think they lose to the Patriots week 15, and I think they lose to the Eagles in week 17 as well, too. Now, both those games, I guess the Patriots game is at New England, but you have the home game against the Eagles. Other than that, Buccaneers at home this week, at Texans, at Steelers. I don't know if I think they could beat the Steelers. Now, I feel very good about them beating the Steelers. The Texans game is tough because I like the way they've been going, but otherwise the Bengals, Browns, and Jets, those are very easy wins. Now, we would have thought entering this week the Dolphins was an easy win too, so I get it. You're right, Jeff. There's no guarantees in the NFL. I just think you have probably forfeited your chance at making a run at the AFC East division. And now, even as a 5 seed, what does that look like for your postseason long term? Because you will be matched up. Maybe you'll avoid the Chiefs, who, if they don't win the division, you would never have to face the Chiefs then until the conference championship, if that scenario unfolds. But I was shocked. I was shocked by this result, and shocked at so consequentially that the Dolphins were the better team on Sunday.
Yeah, they could not stop Devon Achane. That's my biggest issue. Is they can't stop the run. I think Ed Oliver missing that game, and
I think he's done for the season.
Yeah, missing a lot of games is a big deal. The Chiefs couldn't run. They don't have a run. They don't have their version of Achane. They don't have their version of Mercury Morris that's 75 years old, for that matter. The Chiefs, the running backs, with no Pacheco, their Chiefs running backs were 75 years old. That was the problem. But they are vulnerable to that, and Achane's special too. I love how he's being used this year. He is. This is everything we wanted out of Achane. He stayed healthy so far, and I'm jinxing the crap out of him right now. I apologize for that, but this is what people dream on when you get a back like that. That he stayed. He's this capable and gets this sort of usage. Because every week, Achane is like the one good thing that happens in Dolphins games. That's going to be a thing. Every once in a while, you get a good Waddle game. Even Tua every once in a while has a good game. But Achane, he's my constant.
Yeah, let's do this. I can take credit in the beginning of the show talking about how I foresaw this happening with Travis Hunter. I told nobody in redraft to go ahead and take him. I thought in Dynasty, where he was going, the conversations people are having, they were entirely wrong. If I'm going to victory lap about Travis Hunter, you better best believe that I'm going to talk about my losses on Devon Achane, because you remember, Jeff, I very vividly come on your show, talk about very often that Devon Achane was too small to be able to have this sort of volume, and inevitably he gets hurt. Well, he was banged up entering the preseason. That I wasn't doing I told you so at that point, but it was a confirmation in my mind that my process was correct, and I could not have been more wrong. He has been awesome, and despite every sort of bad or negative thing coming in consequence with the Dolphins, Achane still seems to thrive. He's just a cockroach in the best sense of the word, where nothing else seems to destroy the surroundings around him, and he still is able to live and move on. So I was already making defeat last year on Devon Achane, but I'm totally comfortable saying that will be one of my bigger misses of my career. I did not want to be Devon Achane in Dynasty, didn't want him in redraft, and it will probably be the result of not winning championships as a result of the past 2 years, because he has been excellent and has just proven everything that I thought would happen.
Do not want him in a boat. You do not want the goat. You do not get in the Scott Fishbowl playoff because of that. I have a Achane JSN combo in Scott Fishbowl. That's been very, very good to me so far, which is nice. All right, Joe, we're going to go rapid fire through the last couple of games because we can't go in this level breakdown. We could. We'd be here for 2 hours though. And we can't do that. We're busy. So let's do this. I'm going to have you tell me one thing from each of the following games. You tell me that one thing that caught your mind. Colts-Falcons, first off the bat in Berlin.
Jonathan Taylor should be the MVP. I know he won't win it, but he should be what he's doing for that Colts offense. And that Daniel Jones, again, impacted a little bit from a pass rushing perspective, something that I'm going to at least monitor for the Colts moving forward, and especially from a postseason perspective too.
Agreed. He was shockingly bad at evading the pass rush and knowing when it was coming. This was the Giants version of Daniel Jones for part of this game. Until that, like the drive at the end of the game, and until the Tyler Warren throw in overtime, which was
great.
So
great. Yep.
So good. New York Giants, Chicago Bears. Brian Dabble gets fired. Caleb Williams rallies to the Bears to win that game. Two noteworthy things that happened already there.
Yeah, I thought the conditions weren't going to be as bad, and therefore the Giants and Bears would both score a lot more points than what they did. I got that one wrong, but Yeah, there's gonna be some impressive Caleb Williams conversation, and it'll be even more juxtaposed when the Packers lose to the Giants next week, which will happen. I don't really feel like the Bears are at that level yet. They've been, if they're going to be that team, they should have been beating a few more of these teams more convincingly than they have this past month, and it's only been some late game heroics and kind of stupidity from other teams that have made the Bears be what they are record wise. And I'm just not a Packers hater saying that. I think there's going to be a lot of people just happy that Chicago is good at football again, and I want the brakes to be pumped a little bit.
In the space that you were talking about, Bears Giants, the Vikings false started 2 more times. Super weird game in Minnesota this week. A lot of mistakes made, not just by McCarthy, but also especially by McCarthy, but also on the kick return team too. Just odd sequence there. After they got off to a decent start, I thought the Vikings had a chance to win this game. Going into this game, I thought that the line was too big in favor of the Ravens, but the Vikings just played their way into that.
Yeah, and I was right. I mean, you guys had me on Wednesday. Nick had asked that one last week. Like, what do you think this one is tough? And I'm like, oh, it's Ravens all the way. McCarthy's not a good quarterback. And that was true. McCarthy didn't play well. But you're right, Jeff. 2 back-to-back kickoff return fumbles, resulting in, I think, 10 points for the Ravens. It might have been 14. That's just hard to go ahead and overcome that. And I think Kevin O'Connell is one of the best play callers and coaches in the league. But he's going to be saddled with a tough spot. You can't have, I think it's 25 targets between Addison and Jefferson only result in like 100 total passing yards between the two, like receiving yards. I mean, that's inexplicable. I mean, that's just bad quarterback play. I think it's
inconceivable even.
Yeah, that just can't happen. And I don't know how that gets fixed because that's a McCarthy problem in my mind.
Absolutely. Texans-Jaguars. Jaguars were a playoff team. Really? Not anymore after letting Davis Mills, who is Davis Mills,
right,
take them to the game-winning drives in the fourth quarter there. That was 29-10 late in the third quarter in that game. Fourth quarter, it was like till the 12-minute part in the fourth quarter when the Texans scored their first of those touchdowns. Just inexcusable collapse by Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think Davis Mills is the one that sells all that sugary cereal that my kid seems to eat every morning. No, I was shocked by that. I think for me, if we're doing one big takeaway, it's that Texans offense now for the past, let's just give them a month at this point, looking way, way better than I thought they were. We mentioned the Seattle offense being better because of the offensive line play. I think the Texans offensive line play has gotten a little bit more condensed in a good way. And if that's the case, maybe a guy like CJ Stroud can benefit when he comes back from concussion.
Yep. Chargers, Steelers, Aaron Rodgers' worst performance of the season. Not even close. This is the Jets version of Aaron Rodgers that we saw. Awful game by him. Awful game by the Steelers. I mean, for most of the game, they had 3 points until the very end of the game there. I was stunned that they were this bad.
Same. I thought there'd be more offense on both sides of the ball. I thought the Chargers could do things a little bit too, but it felt almost like a few NFL teams have done in the past. I think we've seen this year in particular where neither team feels like they're very good or can function offensively. So you just don't really call a lot of plays and hope an explosive play or two wins you the football game. That happened, of course, Monday night with the Eagles-Packers, but a lot of Packer games have looked that way. So I was intimately familiar with the Steelers-Chargers because I felt like the Chargers were deliberately calling things to not make a mistake because they knew the Steelers' offense was not going to beat them, and they were correct because DK Metcalf couldn't do anything. Aaron Rodgers wasn't getting the ball out quick enough or fast enough, and even Jalen Warren gets a lot of volume. I didn't think he looked all that good in what I thought would be a better spot for him, too, from a volume perspective.
I fell for the Steelers and their revitalized pass rush after what they did to Daniel Jones and the Colts the week before. I thought no Joe Alt. I thought that was going to just be a nightmare for the Chargers, and it kind of was. It was 5-3 in the third quarter.
Right.
It was Penn State, Iowa, back in the 90s and early aughts. Iowa versus X really for a lot of these games. We all hate Iowa, but and you're a Wisconsin guy. I'm a Northwestern guy. Hey, congrats, by the way, to Wisconsin getting off the schneid.
Our punter, QB1, let's go.
Scoring points. Yay. That's all. It's fun to score points. Who knew? Also, Joe, I'm a dunce. I took Panthers in one survivor pool. And so I get what I get. I deserve to lose. I fully admit that because the fun stat, and you and I both listen to the Athletic podcast, so I'm going to credit Robert Mays and crew for this. The last 11 times the Panthers have been favored, they've lost outright.
I heard it's one of those. I'm like, Why
Why did
wasn't
I
that
hear that
everywhere?
beforehand
Yes,
that it
why
was
wasn't
10?
that everywhere? I need
I should have known that.
for as much Twitter and social media as you and I consume, and how much bad social media there is out there. Why can't people have those stats loudly playing out there? Because I never would have thought the Panthers would win if I had heard that. That was an incredibly bad stat when I heard that too. I mean, the Panthers aren't a good football team. I felt very good about that after that Packers loss as well too. That's going to be as bad, if not worse, than the Browns loss. And I think that was it for Bryce Young too, as a QB1 for the Panthers moving forward. He should not be a starting quarterback for anyone next year.
Saints stacked up to try to stop Rico Dowdle. They said,
shocking.
Go ahead,
why wouldn't you do that?
Right. And I don't understand why every team doesn't do that.
Right.
How was Rico Dowdle able to do what he did against the Packers, who had allowed nothing against running backs all year, and then not be able to do anything against the Saints after the first drive? I'm gobsmacked that it was that bad. And honestly, what I'm more surprised is that Dowdle was able to do that against the Packers, because the Packers are good at stopping the run. They're good at stopping opposing running backs all season long. They were the lowest average fantasy points by running back per game going into that game, and Dowdle got him for 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. How did that happen? And then what happened this past week? I'm stunned.
I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think we'll ever. That's a divisional game aspect to a team that maybe the Packers weren't respecting. Look ahead game for the Eagles, all that stuff. Like the data would tell us that shouldn't ever happen, and yet it does every time. It feels like once a week in the NFL. Yeah,
it does. And the Panthers are like a weird team. They can beat the Falcons 30-0 and lose it to Buffalo 40-9 and on the same field. So, the fact that they lost at home shouldn't be that surprising. And they had chances too. Stuffed on a 4th down, turnovers in plus territory, a blocked field goal. I mean, everything. I was listening to this drive on the way back from Phoenix, listening to that game on the drive back from Phoenix. And every time I turn to that game, I'm like, switch it off. It's terrible. Because I knew better. I do have Juwan Johnson in a couple of leagues. So we had him on our show today, and he was fantastic.
He was great.
If you didn't get to hear our show on SiriusXM, Joe and I hosted today, and we had Juwan Johnson on. Listen to it on demand on the SiriusXM app. Really, really good interview. He was fantastic. So we'll close on that happy note there. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I've got Scott Bogman joining me tomorrow on the Rankings podcast. Make sure to check out yesterday's podcast where Joe and Jake did the free agents, and read Joe's free agent article as well. Promo code YouTube15 gets you 15% off any RotoWire subscription. While you're there, check out our Start Sit tool if you can't wait for my value meter. We rolled that out this year. We're very proud of it, so check it all out. It's actually free to use on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Sundays, Saturdays. So, check it all out over at rotowire.com. Promo code YouTube15. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.